in the bottom left-hand corner. All right. So again, thanks guys for being here. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe. We're going to jump into this here. All right. We're going to go about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we'll finish with about 10, 15 minutes of questions because I know everyone or a lot of people are going to have questions, whether it's about something we cover in this session or if it's something that's not covered in this session. I'm open to answering any kind of questions you guys have at the end. So this is about the fifth or sixth one of these that I've done now. And I try to cover something different every single time. So if you guys have done multiple of these or if this is your first one, I always try to cover different topics, different things, come at you with it from a different angle, just so everybody can get some value out of these things. All right. So today for the presentation, our main topics, all right, we're going to go over my overall approach to goaltending. All right, and this is valuable as a coach, as a player, or as a parent, right? I think it's beneficial for all of you and can be really helpful.
Hey.
All right. After that, we're going to go through making saves, kind of just my general approach and my general philosophies for making saves. And then we're going to finish. I get a ton of questions about training and drills, whether it's on-field training or off the field training too. All right. I get a ton of questions. So we're going to go through some training tips and some drills, just some things I like to do, tools I like to use, and things like that. This session will be recorded. So everyone, either tonight or tomorrow morning, when it's all done downloading, everyone will receive a copy of this session. So if you want to take notes, but if you don't get everything down, don't worry, because I will be sending everybody a recording of this session. All right. So we're going to jump right into it here. And again, guys, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask if you have any questions. All right. Throughout the session. And if I don't get to them during the session, you can wait and ask them at the end. All right. So right off the start here, guys, and we're also going to be covering some film at the end. All right. So if you don't quite understand something I'm talking about, hopefully we'll cover it in the film as well at the end. All right. So just to start here, my keys to becoming a complete goaltender. All right. You'll see right there, simplicity, efficiency, and TB12. All right. I'm going to explain all of that, what all that means, and kind of what that looks like for me. All right. And then down here, you'll see stick work, footwork, athleticism, and the mental part of the game. Right. And also, just if anyone can't see this presentation, just send a message in the chat, but everyone should be able to see this. So starting with these three up top: simplicity, efficiency, and TB12. All right, everyone. One of the things that you'll notice is not on this page, all right, is technical or the mechanical part of the position. Right. A lot of times when coaches or players think about what it takes to be a complete goaltender or be a high-level goaltender, the first thing they think about is mechanics. Right. And for me, I take the opposite approach. And my thought process on that is, if you don't have these things, it doesn't matter how good your mechanics are. Right. You can have the best mechanics in the world, but if you don't have these other traits, then it doesn't matter. Right. So starting with me, simplicity. All right. I firmly and strongly believe in a very simplistic approach to the position. All right. And that's stick work, footwork, athleticism, and the mental part of the game. Right. We're not getting super specific with the mechanics of making saves or the technical part of the position. All right. It's all very simple things. All right. Efficiency. You see a lot of goalies or a lot of coaches out here teaching these complex ways to go make saves. And the one I always use as an example is a low save. Right. You see a lot of step out to the ball, get your chest and your head down, jam your stick vertical, and then get over top of your stick. To me, that's an extremely difficult and unrealistic way to make a game-like save. All right. So when I think about going to make saves or coaching a goalie to go make saves, we want to think about being efficient with our movement. All right. Being as efficient as we possibly can when we go move to make a save. All right. And this last one here, the TB12. All right. That is Tom Brady. Right. And the reason I put that in there is because and it's this third bullet here is what it kind of relates to is athleticism, right? When a lot of people think of athleticism, they think about bigger, stronger, faster, right? when I think of athleticism, especially as a goalie, you need to be extremely athletic in the areas that are required to be a goaltender, right? You don't need to be the biggest, you don't need to be the strongest, and you don't need to be the fastest to be one of the best goalies in the world, right? Or to be one of the best goalies in the country, or be one of the best goalies in your area, right? You don't need to be the biggest, strongest, fastest. What you do need is you need to be balanced, right? You need to have good mobility. You need to be explosive in really short bursts, right? You need to be smart. You need to be intelligent, um, and you need to be quick in short bursts. And it's very relatable to me to football, right? You think about a quarterback in football. In general, when you think about athleticism as a quarterback in football, you think of Lamar Jackson, you think of Cam Newton, you think of even some of these guys like Patrick Mahomes, some of the things he can do, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, like some of these more athletic guys who can run around a little bit, make more athletic plays in the pocket. Russell Wilson is another great example, right? But when you break it down and what are the athletic traits that you need to be a great quarterback, there's nobody who does it better than Tom Brady in terms of he's very balanced in the pocket when he throws. He's very good at avoiding pressure. He's got unbelievable footwork, all right, whether it's stepping up in the pocket, sidestepping pressure, moving around with the shape of the pocket, and then delivering the ball to the open receiver because he's smart and he's intelligent and he can process information, and he's very efficient with his movements. All right, nobody does those kind of things better than Tom Brady, and those are the skills you need to be a great quarterback. So when we tie that back into lacrosse, it's the same thing. What are those athletic traits that you need to be a great goaltender, not necessarily the biggest, strongest, fastest guy on your team or goalie in your area? All right. So that's where that kind of methodology comes from for me. We're going to break down these 4 categories now. All right. Stick work, footwork, athleticism, and the mental game. And kind of what that looks like for me, whether it's me training myself or training goalies. All right. Stick work. All right. It sounds very simple, sounds very easy. All right. But there are a few different components to this for me. Number 1 is wall ball. All right. Short stick and goalie stick. I'm always shocked when I go out and I throw with a young goalie or even a high school or college goalie, and you put a short stick in their hands and it almost looks like they've never picked one up before. All right. Especially for you young goalies or for coaches who coach young goalies, encourage them to get a stick in their hands. All right. Get a short stick in their hands, teach them how to catch and throw with a short stick, because it's different than a goalie stick. When you learn how to catch and throw with a goalie stick as a young kid, it's different than learning how to catch and throw with a short stick, simply because of the bigger goalie head with the bigger pocket, right? Where goalies are kind of, young goalies especially, are kind of flinging it all around, right? It's different than learning how to catch and throw with a short stick. All right. And especially young goalies start young in terms of get really, really great stick skills with a short stick, and then you can progress to a goalie stick. I always took great pride in not only having the best stick skills on my team with a goalie stick, but being able to pick up a short stick and blend in with the guys on my team at Denver with a short stick. All right. That was always really important to me. And I think it's extremely helpful and beneficial when you then go make saves. It's much easier, right? How can you expect, as a young goalie, or expect your goalie to make saves at a high level if they struggle to handle a stick, catching and throwing with both a short stick and a goalie stick, right? So again, wall ball, repping saves with both a short stick and a goalie stick, just off the wall, hitting the 6 spots, and then passing with both hands. Goalies, challenge yourself to develop an offhand, right? And coaches, challenge your goalies to develop an offhand. Because one, as a goalie, you never know when you're going to need it, all right? I, throughout my career, always had that 1 or 2 times a year where I needed my offhand for one reason or another. Whether it was to roll away from pressure and just get the ball out with my offhand, or if I just pick up a ground ball, and if I happen to be kind of running towards the sideline or up the sideline, having to put it in my weak hand for a second before I come back to my strong hand and throw. Right. So learn how to catch and throw and be efficient with both hands in that area. All right. Ground balls. I encourage you young goalies to get out and get into ground ball work with your team. Coaches, encourage your goalies to get out and be part of those sessions in practice. All right. And what ground balls helps with is it, one, enhances your out of cage play. Remember, there are a lot more things that goalies have to do besides just make saves. And one of those things can be that you bring value to your team is being able to pick up ground balls around the crease. And if you can develop that skill in practice, it'll help build your field awareness. And if you can build field awareness, you'll be more comfortable outside the crease with the ball, and you'll be more effective in the clearing game because you'll have a better general feel for the field. I think that's really important. And the last one, shooting. All right. I do this and I like this for a couple reasons. One, it improves your outlet passing. All right. Being able to throw a high velocity pass or a shot and aim for certain parts of the net, that will ultimately help you with your outlet passing. All right. And the other reason I like this too is because I think sometimes it can just be a good mental break for a goalie. Right? Take your goalie, instead of having them in the cage for the shooting drill, let them hop in the shooting drill. All right. Let them take 1 or 2 shots in the shooting drill. All right. I think it can be a great mental break for goalies and kind of break up the monotony of always being in the cage for the shooting drills. It's great for their stick work. It's great to learn how to do those kinds of things and be a part of that. And again, it's really, really helpful for outlet passing. All right. So I think that's really important for goalies to get involved in as well. All right, going on to our footwork here. All right. This is something for people who have listened to me before or the goalies that are listening that I work with. Footwork is huge for me. All right. Footwork is, to me, footwork and stick work are the things that I spend the most time focusing on, both for myself still to this day and for the goalies that I work with. All right. So as coaches, when you are thinking about what to do with your goalies, if you're not sure, find something with stick work or find something with footwork. All right. Those are the 2 keys ultimately to being a really good goalie. It's not about being technical or mechanical. It's about, having good feet and having a good stick. All right. So the first thing with footwork is thinking about moving efficiently. All right. I see so many goalies who think that the bigger the step they take with their front foot, the more explosive they're being. All right. When really it's the opposite. The longer step you take with your front foot, the longer it's going to take for you to get the rest of your body behind the ball. The shorter your step is with your front foot, the sooner it makes contact with the ground and the faster you can drive off your back foot and actually get behind the trajectory of the ball. All right. So what I mentioned earlier, as a goalie, you want short, explosive movements. All right. And I call it 6-inch explosions. You want to take a 6-inch front step. You want to take a 6-inch step with your front foot and then drive with your back foot behind the trajectory of the ball. All right. So you'll see it here on this next bullet. Your back leg is key. Your front foot is not what gives you power. It's not what pulls the rest of your body with you. All right. Your front foot is simply what gives you direction. Okay. So if you're going to your off stick side high, for me, I'm left-handed. All right. So for me as a lefty, if I'm going to off stick side high, my right foot gives me direction to get behind the ball. My back leg is what generates all the power. Okay. I'm using my back hip, my glute, and I'm firing off my foot to get my body behind the ball. Okay. Moving laterally or on a true 45. I think this is a really, really important one. And I think a lot of times when I ask goalies or when I see goalies, they say they're stepping on a true 45, but what is actually happening is they come forward. Somewhere along the line, a 45-degree step became associated with moving forward, right? And you never want to move forward on a shot, okay? If you're going to step on a 45, you have to step on a true 45-degree angle, okay? And that doesn't mean you're going forward. You're not sending your body forward. In a sense you are, because obviously it's a 45-degree angle, but that still is more lateral than it is forward, all right? So you never want to be moving forward to the ball, all right? You want to be moving laterally or on a true 45-degree angle, all right? That's really, really important. And something that you guys have now, everyone's heard me say now already, drive behind the ball. This is what I use instead of step to the ball, all right? It's a much more, in my mind, easier term to understand, and I think it's just much more effective. You don't want to go at or to the ball. You want to step and drive behind the ball. And with that front step, your body should be behind the ball to some degree. All right. So you want to drive off your back foot behind the ball. Okay. Just one thing, guys, before we go on to the next slide, if we've gotten kind of into the meat of everything here, if you guys are having any questions, again, just feel free to shout them out. All right, here we go. Into the next part that we talked about, athleticism. All right, and diving more into kind of this quarterback type comparison. All right, you need to train for the needs of your position. All right. So we're going to go through both these here. You need to train for the needs of your position. All right. So what that means is whether you're a goalie or a coach and you're in the weight room, right? You need to do movements in the weight room that are going to translate to the kind of things you need when you're on the field. All right. And going off that, you need to train game-like movements. All right. Going back to this first part here about training for the needs of your position. All right. You'll see down there, being a goalie is very core, hip, and glute dominant. All right. So you need to train those areas in order to see improvements on the field, right? Like going into the weight room and doing heavy squats, you don't use your quads all that much as a goalie, right? And if you are, it means your balance is off, right? You might feel your quads a lot if you're too front heavy, right? But if you're positioned well and your balance is distributed properly, you shouldn't be using your quads very much as a goalie, right? It's a lot of core, right? Because that's where you generate the most power from it, and it's a lot of hips and glutes, right? So those are the things you need to train when you're off the field doing your strength training or whatever it may be, right? Going in the weight room and squatting a bunch of weight is not going to be super beneficial, right? For a couple of reasons. One, again, it's not a quad dominant position. Or going and doing a bunch of lunges, right? It's not that beneficial for the position. And two, the reason you don't want to do those kinds of things in my mind is, why go in the weight room and train your body to move very slowly if on the field you need to be able to move very fast, right? And again, my whole thing of train fast, play fast, you see it down there. If you're going in and training your body to do slow movements, then you can't expect it to move fast when you get out on the field and try to make saves or make movements that you need to be quick and explosive. So that's kind of my thought on that. And then training game-like movements. All right. What I mean by that is, I mentioned it earlier, I see so many goalies and so many coaches practicing movements that are near impossible to translate into a game. All right. And I referenced the one earlier about low saves. Okay. The idea of stepping, jamming your stick, getting your chest and your head down over the ball, in theory makes sense, right? But it's impossible to translate into a game at game speed, right? So that's where you see in games, nobody makes saves that way in games because it's impossible to do. So what happens as a result is a lot of goalies end up flopping, or they just miss and they can't get there enough time, or they freeze up, or they try to go into the splits because they've trained movements that aren't applicable to gameplay, right? So everything you'll hear from me and everything you'll hear me cover is, I'm not a technical person. I'm not a mechanical person. I'm all about finding movements that are most efficient. All right. So you'll see some examples in the film of what I mean by that, particularly with this low save. I like to use the low save as an example because it's the easiest to see. But again, training game-like movements. All right. And again, this is another quarterback reference I use. A quarterback doesn't practice with one throwing motion and then go into a game and throw with a completely different throwing motion, right? They're consistent from practice to games. So for you young goalies, this is a good opportunity to watch yourself on film, right? Watch really good goalies on film and see how they move in games, and then replicate that in practice rather than these like pretty technical movements that people teach just because it looks really and sounds really good. And then going into games and not being able to replicate those movements. All right. So it's important that you train game-like movements.
So what weightlifting would you recommend then for training?
We're going to cover that on the last slide.
Okay.
So we're going to go through all that stuff. Great question though. We'll be going through it in a couple minutes here. The mental side of the game here, guys, this is super important. First, I'm going to talk from a player standpoint, and then I'm going to talk from a coaching standpoint, because I think it's really important from both sides. All right. First of all, from a player standpoint, all right, these things. Number one, film study. All right, it's great for lacrosse IQ. Being able to watch a game for more than just the enjoyment, right? watch a game for, what is the defense doing? What is the offense trying to do? How is this goalie moving and why is he moving that way? Understanding why guys are doing certain things. One for your own benefit of them being able to take what some of these guys do really well and learning from it and trying to implement it into your game. And two, especially for us as goalies, being able to understand what your defensemen are doing, what a team defense looks like, what a really good team defense looks like, where you want to see shots from, where you want your D-middies to get guys on the field, when, situations when you need to slide versus situations when you don't need to slide. That is super important when you start talking about defense from a team perspective. All right. And two, the more you understand the game, the more confidence you'll have in cage. All right. The more you can understand what's happening on the field around you, the more the game will slow down for you. And as a result, the more confidence you'll have when you're in there in the cage and playing in games. All right. Number two, mental training. All right. You have to train, right? We train physically. You have to train your brain too. It's just as, if not more important. First thing is meditation. I know it might sound silly, especially for some of you younger guys, but there are some great apps out there, Calm, Headspace. It's really nice. I started doing it in college, and it really helped me kind of practice my breathing and learn how to relax in games, right? As goalies, we all go through those moments in games where you might give up 2 or 3 goals in the span of 1 or 2 minutes. Or at the beginning of games, a team might score on their first 4 shots, right? It happens sometimes. And being able to mentally stay under control, breathe, calm yourself down, and stay present in the moment is really important. The other thing with that is positive self-talk. All right. We've all been there as goalies, as I just mentioned, where we might give up the first 2 shots in a game. We might give up the first 3 shots in a game, right? We get a little down and we start to say, oh, is it going to be one of those days, or I'm not seeing it today, or I don't feel good today. It's really important to start practicing positive self-talk, right? It's all about the next shot. What already happened doesn't matter. I've got this. I can do this. I've trained for this. Whatever it is that you have to start saying to yourself or thinking about to get yourself to remain positive in cage and continue to maintain a high level of confidence. Healthy evaluating. All right. I think this is a really important for ones. It's, to be completely honest, something that I struggled with a ton throughout college. And I've gotten better at over the last year or so, is being able to evaluate yourself in a healthy way. I used to, in college, when I didn't have a good game or I knew there were a couple goals on film that I should have had, I would avoid it. I just wouldn't watch it. I would forget about it and I would just move on to the next week. But what happens when you do that is you don't improve, because you're not watching specifically what was happening on those goals or in those situations, and taking it and turning it into a positive and learning from it, right? So being able to identify areas of weakness in your game, that's a good thing, right? It's not bad to tell yourself, all right, I have a weakness here. How do I attack it and improve it and turn it into a strength? That's something that is really important. And the other thing is the more you can watch yourself, or the more you can, evaluate yourself over periods of time, the more trends you'll pick up, right? Good trends that of things you do very well, and bad trends of things that maybe you don't do very well. And the other part of healthy evaluating is not doing it after every single goal, right? We've all been there as goalies where after every single goal, you're sitting there going, what did I do wrong on this one? All right, what did I do wrong on this one? All right, why did this one go in? What's important is not evaluating every single goal and trying to dissect what you did wrong on every single shot. What you want to do is you want to identify trends over time. So if over a period of 4 or 5 weeks, you're noticing I'm getting scored on a lot off stick side low, that is a time to then say, all right, I need to evaluate this and figure out what I'm doing, where I need to improve in order to make more saves to my off stick side low. I think that's really important also. If you goalies have any questions about that, feel free to shoot them out. Now I'm going to just briefly run through this from a coach's perspective, because I think it's really important as a coach to understand the mental part of a goalie also. Because I see it a lot, especially as a coach. I do some work with high school programs. I do a little bit of consulting for some college programs, and talking to coaches at the high school and collegiate level and the club level, as coaches, and I do it too. I'm a coach as well. So we as coaches, we always want to see our goalies, especially playing well, because it's very black and white. They either give up the goal or they make the save, right? It's very black and white. What's important again, and it's the same for coaches, is you need to evaluate trends over time, right? You can't be going to your goalie after every goal saying, hey, you did this wrong on this one, you did this wrong on that one. What happened here? Why'd this one go in? What were you seeing, right? It's about identifying trends with your goalies over a period of time, right? And that is important for one, just to be quite frank, that you're not in their ear every time they give up a goal, right? No goalie can play well under that kind of treatment from a coach. It's really, really challenging to have a coach in your ear all the time when you're maybe struggling a little bit, or you give up a couple goals in a row. The other thing too, as a coach, that is super important, especially with goalies. Goalie is a unique position, and what's super, unique about the position is there's only one that plays, right? It's not midfield where you cycle through 5 or 6 offensive midfielders throughout the course of a game, and maybe your top guy just has one of those games where he's 0 goals and 1 assist, right? Or 0-0 or 1-0, where maybe he's normally 3 or 4 points, right? It's important to build a relationship with your goalie and understand kind of their personality, what they react well to, what they don't react well to, and building that relationship with them so you can understand them, and help them in the best way for him as an individual, right? It's really important as coaches to build good relationships with your goalies and understand what they respond to, what they don't respond to, so you can learn how to best help them over a period of time, and keep them as mentally confident as possible and feeling really good about themselves, because the goalie position is very, very much a mental game, more so than a physical game. All right. We're going to dive into make the actual save part a little bit. And we're not going to get super specific today into my technique on how I make each save in each spot. This overall is going to be more of a general type approach, how I generally approach the idea of making saves, things I think about, and some cues that I think are really important. All right. The first thing, and I mentioned it earlier, practice the way you play. All right. You have to practice drills, and you have to practice making saves the way that is actually realistic to make them in games, right? It can't be the other way around. You can't practice this one way and then go into games, and now all of a sudden you've done all this practice making saves in a way that's impossible to translate to game speed, and now you're having to try to make saves a completely different way. And again, I keep referencing the low shot save, but never, or very rarely, and I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw it, a goalie make a save in a game low where they step, jam, and get their body all the way over top of the ball. It's just too long of a movement. All right, so it's important to identify those kinds of things and practice the way you play. Okay, that's number one. Okay, just a few key points here. Less is more as a goalie. All right, the less you move, the more efficient you are getting from point A, where you start in your stance, to point B, where the ball is going. The less movement you can do that in, the better, right? You want to be as efficient as you possibly can as a goalie. That's super important, okay? Number 2, mechanical equals slow, okay? And I mentioned that earlier. Oftentimes, the goalies who have the best mechanics, or are the most mechanical and technical, very, very rarely are they the best goalies, okay? You want fluid and athletic movements, all right? And we'll talk about the training here in a little bit, okay? But you want fluid athletic movements. You don't want methodical mechanical movements, all right? It's really important that you have fluid athletic movements. All right, the last one, I call it catch the ball mindset, okay? Every save you make, it's just like you're playing catch. It's just like you're playing catch with a buddy or a teammate, right? Everything high, all it is, the only difference is your hands are in a different spot. All right, with your top hand on high and hip shots, you want to avoid punching, right? I know a lot of goalies here punch your top hand to the ball, punch your top hand to the ball. All right, if you think about just playing catch with a short stick or even with a goalie stick, when are you ever taught as a player to punch your hand to the ball to catch the ball, right? You're not, right? So as a goalie, why make it any different when we're trying to catch saves, right? Or make saves, right? And the way I like to describe it to goalies, rather than punching your top hand, is your top hand. If we use a car as a reference, or like if we're talking about a car, your top hand is your steering wheel. That's what's going to get you there, right? Your bottom hand, that's your gas pedal. That's what's going to give you the power and the explosiveness to get all over the cage wherever you need to go to make saves. That way, if you're not punching your top hand, now your hands stay nice and flat and even, right? You can have soft hands and you can just catch everything, right? You want to try as much as you can to catch the ball and make clean saves, and you can't do that if you're punching your top hand. And then on low shots, avoid trapping the ball. It's the same concept, right? Trapping the ball is, again, a very difficult movement. It's a long way to move. So again, just catch it. Focus on catching the ball. All right. And that comes from, you bend at your knees, keep your chest up, keep your head up. Now you're just bending your knees, getting down with your stick, right? Chopping that top hand, and you're just making a clean save by catching the ball. All right. We're going to get into that. Kind of the athletic part here in a minute. But those are my keys on overall, my general keys on making saves when you're thinking about going through and making saves as a goalie. Okay. Less is more, mechanical equals slow, and a catch the ball mindset. Okay. All right. Now, I mentioned we're going to go through my training stuff really quick before, then we're going to hop into some film, and then we'll finish with some question and answer. So really quick, I'm just going to take you through my preferred training, my favorite tools, and things I avoid. My training now is about 90% resistance bands. And I'll get people who say to me, well, you can't build strength with, or you can get a lot stronger, a lot faster if you just lift. And my argument to that on really three different levels is, one, I'm not looking for maximum strength, right? As goalies, right, we're not looking for maximum strength. We're looking for optimal strength. We're looking for functional strength, right? We're not looking to be able to squat a bunch of weight or bench press a bunch of weight as goalies. It doesn't do us much good, right? We want to use things and do things that promote range of motion, explosiveness, power, moving quickly, and that you get from resistance bands. Next part of that is mobility and pliability. All right, I stretch a bunch. Okay, stretching is super, super important as a goalie. Okay, and then pliability. Right, this is a big one for me. It's something that has become very important to me, and I do a lot. I spend about a half hour a day on it. When you think about lifting heavy weight, right, that builds big dense muscles, right? As a goalie, especially, we want long elastic muscles, right? We want to be able to move quickly. We want to be able to be flexible and be mobile and really kind of like a rubber band go, right? And those two things are what help with that. And then the resistance bands, it causes a lot less impact on your muscles and your joints. You can get a lot more range of motion using resistance bands. And I enjoy them a lot better. I think it's helped me a lot moving more towards resistance bands as a goalie. I will occasionally use some light weights or light kettlebells. I don't really ever use anything. For me, I'm 6'2", 210 pounds. And I don't use anything more than a 30-pound weight or a 30-pound dumbbell. Okay, so it doesn't have to be much. I do a lot of balance work, right? You think about, as a goalie, what's really important, especially when the ball is really zinging around, is you have to be able to move around the cage with balance. Because if the ball is zinging around and now all of a sudden someone gets a pass for a step down shot, you have to be able to get to your spot, square up, and be balanced, right? It's super important that you get there and be balanced. So I'll work on a lot of double leg and single leg balance, okay? And then the last thing I do a lot of is low impact cardio, okay? As goalies, we need to do conditioning. It's very important to be able to maintain, your cardio throughout the course of a game. If you're a goalie, especially now in the shot clock era where you might be seeing a lot of shots in a game, you need to be able to last the duration of the game and not fatigue. Okay, so low impact cardio, and I'll do quick, right? I'll do an example is the assault bike, or sprints, or a bike. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, right? Or 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off. Intervals are a lot of what I do in my cardio. You'll see over here on the things I avoid distance running, just because it's very high impact on your joints. And again, it's a slower paced movement. It's a slower paced form of cardio that, as goalies especially, aren't necessary for us. Moving over to some of my favorite tools here that I use a lot, mini bands. They're just perform better. They have them, coaches, you probably have them in your school's weight rooms. They're really great. They're great for glutes and hips. The next one is Skills ankle bands. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these, or they're the ones that you just strap around your ankle. Those are great. You can rep saves with those. You can do all kinds of drills with those, or you can just practice your stepping. I'll use it as a warm up sometimes in the weight room, just to practice my stepping and get my hips and my glutes fired up. TB12 handled bands. These are bands that Tom Brady makes. There's nothing special about the Tom Brady ones. They happen to be the first ones that I came across and really, really liked them. So I'll use those. You can find those on TB12's website. We just got a couple chats. Really quick before we keep moving on. When you say distance, how long is too long? I'll never run more than, honestly, for me, I really never run further than half a mile, and I'll do it as a warm up every once in a while. If I'm feeling good, I'll do about half a mile on the air runner or true form runner, just as a warm up. I would say in general, there's no need for you to go more than 2 miles if you like distance running, right? If you like distance running and it's something that you think that you find challenges yourself mentally, and you like it physically, I think that's fine. But I would just say keep it under 2 to 3 miles. There's no need to go any more than that. That's a good question. The handled bands, again, other brands make them, but this is what I use a lot for my upper body. They're really great, really versatile. You can hook them up to a door. You can take them to your locker room. You can take them out onto a field and hook them up to a fence. So I really like those. Medicine balls, I use these a lot for explosive movements. The TRX Rip Trainer, you can find those on TRX's website. I will do resistance saves with these. And that will make more sense if you guys look it up. It's basically this long rod with a resistance band attached to the top, and you hook it up to like a door or something, and you can practice saves with a little bit of resistance. And then I included a foam roller and a hyper ice in here just because I try to spend about 20 to 30 minutes on these, doing a foam roller or hyper ice before my workout, and about 20 to 30 minutes after. And I know that sounds like a lot, but again, for us as goalies, and for you coaches who may have strength programs for your teams, or workouts for your players, mobility and pliability are two of the most important things as a goalie. So it's important that your goalies are working on that, and they're really important to me, and things I work on a lot. Things I avoid. I avoid any heavy lifting. And you'll see below that barbells. Okay. I don't really do anything with heavy lifting. I don't do any Olympic lifts, anything like that. And I don't do anything with a barbell. Do you recommend yoga? Yes. One of the things I did leave off here is I've started doing Pilates recently. And that has been really nice. I enjoy that a lot. And yoga is great. Yeah, yoga is awesome. It's great for your mobility, obviously, and it's a really good mental exercise too. I love yoga. Back to the things I avoid: heavy lifting. Again, I touched on it earlier. Again, things like squats, or a really heavy deadlift, or bench press. Those kinds of things are just not movements for us as goalies that we need. Right? We want to train to be fast, quick, explosive, mobile. And those are just things that, for me, I don't think we need as goalies. I know some goalies who enjoy it, and it's something they do, not because they know it, not because they think it helps them, but simply because it's something they enjoy doing. Right. And if it's something you enjoy doing, that's fine, but I would just advise you to find the balance, right? Don't rely solely on the heavy lifts or the barbell lifting. Make sure you find balance if those are or if those are kinds of things that you enjoy doing. And the last thing, again, just distance running. I don't do very much distance running at all. I like to keep it to shorter intervals, stuff like that. What kind of stretches do you do after a game or practice, if any? That's a good question. So before a game, we're trying to turn those muscles on, right? We want to get those muscles activated. We want to get them warm, ready to go. Something I try to always tell goalies is you want to be warm before you get into the cage for your warm up before a game or a practice, right? You don't want to hop into cage and that be the first thing you did to get warm, or you haven't stretched yet, or you haven't done something to break a sweat yet. Always stretch or warm up before a game or practice. Before practice, I will do trying to think of my warm up before practice or games. So I will start with the hyper ice. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically like a vibrating gun, like a little vibrating gun tool. I will use that on pretty much my entire lower body for about 15 minutes, and then I'll use it on my upper body for 5 to 10 minutes. Just so that helps, generate blood flow to the muscles and warms them up. And then from there, I'll go into a couple hip stretches. It's really important to stretch your hips out. And you can look that kind of stuff up on YouTube. There are all kinds of stretches for your hips on YouTube. So just find like 2 or 3 that you really like or you think feel really good. And then from there, I'll go through about a 5-minute dynamic warm up of high knees, butt kickers, side lunges, jog, shuffle, karaoke, sprint, some broad jumps, really get the heart rate going, get my body warm. And then after a game or a practice, after workout, I'll do the hyper ice again for another 20 to 30 minutes. And then I will do a static stretch for about 10 minutes. And that's just, sit down butterfly, right foot out, left foot out, figure 4, all that kind of stuff, stretches like that. And I know what some of you guys are probably thinking, 20 to 30 minutes sounds like a lot for a warm up and a cool down. Something to keep in mind is it doesn't need to be that long. I'm a lot older than some of you younger goalies out there. I've had 4 or 5 surgeries on my lower body, so I need that extra time. But for you guys, I would recommend, make sure you give yourself 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after, right? To whether it's before to stretch and warm up, and after if it's, to stretch and warm and cool down, right? So I would say, for a lot of you younger goalies or for coaches, if you're kind of looking for timetables here to get kids out, I would say give yourself an extra 10 minutes before or an extra 10 minutes after. All right. If there's no more questions on that stuff for right now, we are going to hop into some film here really quick, just about 4 or 5 clips. And then we will finish with some question and answer. All right. Everyone should be able to see this video. Okay. We're going to go through about, I think it's 5 clips, 4 or 5 clips of some goalies. And, I think these are 5 really good clips of what game-like saves look like. All right. And I tried picking a few that looked different. A lot of them are around the hips or lower. It's a lot of low shots. And I just want to give you guys an idea kind of what game-like saves look like. They're not always pretty. They don't always look the best. But again, there's 1 or 2 examples in here of things that I'm going to pick apart a little bit. But other than that, we're going to kind of roll through these 5 and talk about them really quick. Okay, right. So this first one, rewinding in slow motion here. What I want you to see here, and some of you know this already, but I'm a big advocate for, if you practice it, dropping to your knees, similar to the way that Jack does here. It's almost like a butterfly in hockey, right? It's not flopping, it's not dropping to your butt, but controlled dropping to your knees. That to me is a much faster, much more efficient movement than the whole step jam, get your chest and head over the ball. right? I understand he drops to his knees, and it's not always ideal to drop to your knees. But the thing that really is important to me here is he keeps his chest up, he keeps his head up, his hands are out, and he's able to make the save, right? Well, gives up a rebound, but that's okay. He makes a save, right? This is another one here where some guys will practice step jam, get body over top of the ball. But again, this is a far movement where you're probably not going to be able to do that in time. All right. And this, what I don't like about this is, if one of you goalies out there want to throw your audio on and tell me what didn't Jack do here. Someone hop on and give it a shot. What doesn't he do with his back foot here?
Push off of it.
Yep. Right. What's wrong with this one is Jack steps with his front foot. He does a great job, right, of taking an efficient step with his front foot, but he doesn't drive off of his back foot. So he loses his balance, right? He ends up on his butt. Okay, these are one of these situations when I talk about lacrosse IQ for you goalies and coaches trying to learn more about the position, is learning to notice those kinds of things, right? The first half of this save is really good. He takes a step with his front foot, 6 inches, his chest is up, his head's up, but then he forgets to drive and drive off his back foot, and he ends up falling on his butt a little bit.
How do you feel about him dropping to his knees with an open guy on crease? Like, is that dangerous? Because if he had that rebound, he probably couldn't have up.
I would say first things first, doing what you have to do to make the save. And look, if you can make the save comfortably without, and I'm going to show you one. There's a clip of me in here where I make a low save similar to these ones where I stay on my feet. Obviously, ideally, you want to stay on your feet. Okay, but I think there are times where it can be valuable to drop to your knees. And I think that first shot that we saw of Jack here was a good time to do it, right? And then I showed you the next clip where it was, he probably fell where it wasn't necessary for him to drop to his butt, right? Does that make sense? So first thing first is make the save, and the goal obviously is to do it on your feet. But if you have to, I think there's a controlled way to drop to your knees, and it was that first clip, and then we saw the bad example on that second clip. Right, and this is another one where we talk, right? He gets off, right, kind of kicks his foot out there. And this, again, guys, there's good and bad in this one. Okay, again, and I know this from experience of playing with Jack, he does not train to jam his stick into the ground, right? He jams to catch the ball. So a lot of times when goalies train to jam their stick and get their chest over top of the ball, they would just miss this, right? But he's able to get a piece of it because he's trained athletic movements to make saves like this. Now, the bad part is again, he kind of falls into the splits on his butt here, right? But at the end of the day, he's trained athletic movements in practice so he can make athletic movements in games, okay? And obviously, again, the splits aren't ideal, but let's be realistic here. There are times where sometimes you just got to get a foot on it, right? Or you got to just throw your arm out there and get your arm on it, right? And this is a situation where Jack, he knows it's an in-tight shot. He's not going to be able to get there. This is where he's got to use his athleticism a little bit, right? So there's good and bad there. All right, and then on that last one, we see drops to his knees again, and I think that was a pretty good example, of a time when it's okay to drop to his knees. If he's going 5-hole, right, or kind of at his chest, he dropped, got in front of it, and made a good save. All right. This clip here, this is a clip of me from last year in a game against the Archers, and it's just a low save example, right, of staying on your feet, right? But again, making an athletic movement to save the ball, right? See how my chest stays up? It's a little hard to see because the defenseman's in the way a little bit, but see how my chest is up, my head's up, right? I go down and I just catch the ball, right? Now I come up and I'm ready to clear it, right? There's nothing there. Okay, but it's a nice fluid. Again, we talk about being fluid. Okay, it's a nice fluid, get down, catch the ball, and come back up, right? Here we go. Last one from Timmy Troutner here. Again, he's not jamming his stick. He's not, being super mechanical. It's just a nice, fluid, athletic movement. Boom. Makes it a nice, short movement, nice, clean save. All right, so those are some examples of kind of what I'm talking about, especially those last two, where I think they were two really good examples of